I don't know if you heard that, but welcome everyone and thank you for staying for Borders and welcome who just joined. Good afternoon. I am Carolina Chavez. I'm a council member of Chula Vista and the vice chair for this committee. Today I will be leading this meeting due that our chair, Jesus Escobar, is out of town. Unfortunately, due to intense and long board of directors meeting, the last 2 months, our committee was unable to meet. However, today we will move forward with continuing important and meaningful discussions. So let's confirm quorum. I'd like to ask our clerk, Francesca, to confirm if we have quorum. Francesca?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Can you also help us with the logistics for the meeting, please?
Yes, thank you. Today's meeting will be simultaneously interpreted in English and Spanish, and we'll be hearing remarks from at least one person in Spanish. Interpretation devices are available for our members at each seat and for members of the public in the lobby at the reception desk. I'd like to ask our interpreter to briefly explain how the interpretation features work.
Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. And there will be an icon right there. And select the English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, por favor, de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono Interpretación, globio terráqueo y seleccione Español o Spanish. Si está utilizando esta aplicación, ya sea en un móvil, en el móvil para Zoom, celular, tableta, etcétera, presione los puntos suspensivos y luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, o sea, silenciar el audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentran en la sala de reunión, por favor de pedir los auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo.
Thank you very much. I'd also just like to note for members of the public that are participating on Zoom, if you'd like to speak on an item, please use the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. When you're called on, you'll be unmuted by staff. And if you're calling in by phone, you'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself. If you're calling into the meeting, please use *9 to raise your hand if you'd like to comment on the item. Thank you, Chair. That concludes the comments.
Thank you, Francesca. Are there any questions from members regarding meeting procedures? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, now I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we live and work on traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of tribal nations, including the Kumeyaay, Luiseño, Pupeño, and Cahuilla peoples. Also, we share strong historical and cultural roots that unite us with all our neighbors. Now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able to. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Great. Moving on with the agenda. Item number 1, non-agenda public comments. First item on our agenda, non-agenda public comments. Francesca.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Our first public comment on this item will be Truth, if you'd like to step up to the podium.
Whoever does the pledge twice in one day loves America more. That's the rule. But you want to know why Laura isn't here? Too many canceled meetings. Don't you think that having borders after BOD is kind of, a failed uphill battle? But you want to know why I'm here? Absolutely no life, or I'm trying to break last week's record. I haven't made up my mind yet. Anyways, I wish I could have starved myself and just stayed for the entire last Borders meeting. But if I had stayed, then I wouldn't have a good story to tell. After the last Borders, I ate lunch at Timmy's place, which helps former homeless youth take control of their lives through work. You should all go there. It's like a couple blocks away. And in walks Fox 5 ready to film. So I made sure to wear my no SANDAG hat for the camera while I ate my delicious pizza. And on a different note, I realized that both the intentionally mismanaged immigration system and the border wall are exactly the same as SANDAG's toll lanes and parking fees. They are all impediments to Americans' right to travel. Whoever supports these things that benefit only the rich are the same type of people that support the so-called border crisis that benefits big corporations looking for cheap labor. Things need to change so that everyone can afford a delicious slice of pizza.
Thank you. That concludes the public comments on this item.
Thank you, Francesca. Well, today has been a very busy morning, and we have a very interesting agenda. I know Mario just stepped out for a little bit, but I want to welcome him to our community. For our community. Oh, there he is. We might as well. I was just going to give you the welcome, Mario. I want to welcome Mario Orso, new CEO of SANDAG. For our community and our committee, Mario's presence translates into a renewed opportunity as he is a genuine border citizen, bilingual English, Spanish, and an expert in not only border infrastructure, but in the borders in general, particularly for his experience working with Mexico, with the native tribes, and with our neighbors, Orange, Riverside, and Imperial counties. Welcome, Mario. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. It's been an interesting 2 weeks. This is the end of week 2. And each day is more interesting, more fun. And we're really excited on all what's coming up and building those partnerships and the objectivity of our work here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mario, and welcome again. It's very valuable for the Borders Committee and me personally that you join us. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I couldn't be happier to have you with us. Now our agenda focuses on a very important issue, the binational agreements that are necessary to advance the SR 11 project.
To read consent.
Oh, on the second page?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I need items in consent. I'm going to read them. Item number 2, approval of meetings minutes, March 22nd, 2024. Item 3, overview of June 2024 elections in Mexico. This report provides a general overview of the results of Mexico's 2024 federal elections held on June 2nd, 2024.
You need to call for an election.
Excuse me?
You need to call for an election.
I'm calling for action at this moment. Items 2 and 3 are the consent items, and it requires action to move forward. Could someone move the motion to approve the consent item of our agenda, please?
I'll move to approve.
Can I have a second? Second. Thank you. And we're going to vote at this.
Vice Chair, we do have public comment on consent. If I can take those first, please.
Okay.
Truth, if you'd like to come back up to the podium, you'll be first, followed by the original draft.
There you go.
All right, item 3, Claudia is an extremist, and I'm sure those top SANDAG schemers are salivating at the future backroom deals that will undoubtedly be introduced soon. Pretty much nobody even believes the elections in Mexico are not rigged. Claudia worked at the U.S. government's Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and contributed to the communist-founded United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Claudia belongs to the Juntos Haremos Historia coalition, which is allied with the Communist Labor Party. Her father, Carlos Scheinbaum Yoselevitz, was involved in communist riots in the 1960s. Even her grandfather was a communist. For those uneducated, that means they don't believe in private property or any creator-endowed rights, only in a few government-decided privileges if you're a good little comrade slave. She removed statues, she locked down businesses and churches in 2021 with anti-science lies, promoted infanticide, she pushed transit-only lanes with a metro system that collapsed from engineering flaws. Claudia was even accused of nepotism last year when she helped oversee her mother get an Arts and Science Award. So it sounds like Claudia is ready for SANDAG and U.S. government business, all right. That's good. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be the original draw. You can go ahead when you're ready.
I had my hand raised for non-agenda and then it got lowered. I was wondering if you would give me that minute back. And so I could have 2 minutes.
I believe that's
Hello?
at the discretion of the chair.
Would that be possible? Can you stop the time?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So I can do my non-agenda and this one?
Yes, please go ahead.
As far as my non-agenda goes, I just, when you guys are working on the border, I try and tell you what's really happening down there because none of you are actually there on the border covering it. And what I'm finding should be of concern to people because I shouldn't be finding child documents, child IDs. These two sisters just crossed over the border, which I told the other board, where the cartel is, and their IDs were left in a bush and bent up. And that doesn't just happen on a whim. They're doing it intentionally, and it should be concerning that I'm finding birth certificates and documents from parents allowing their children to travel unaccompanied and all of this stuff. What happens is these children get trafficked, and it is a very serious thing that is happening, and it should be a concern when you're working on the border and trying to work with Mexico when this could be stopped and mitigated, but instead it's just being perpetuated. And we need to do something about it because these children deserve better and they don't deserve to be trafficked and disappear. So for my consent, and that's the problem with Claudia, this was all by design. I mean, all the elections are rigged and we are sitting here having a Jewish communist woman. There's nothing trafficking that's going on, and it's just going to perpetuate more of the problem, especially when this woman is engaged in the United Nations and there are contracts with Mexico already to facilitate more trafficking. So it's like this could actually stop if people really wanted it to, because they can either slow down the flow or increase it, tell people where to go. I mean, this is a very well organized with the United Nations agenda to invade the nation of America and destroy it from within. That's the only way to do it. And so it should be very concerning to you that someone like that is also going to be ruling the nation that is just below us, that is where all these people are coming through. All of these.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments on consent, Chair. Would you like me to go ahead and take the roll call vote now?
Yes, please.
Thank you. For South County, Vice Chair Chavez.
Present.
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
East County is absent. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno.
Moreno present.
We're taking the vote on consent.
Oh, I'm sorry. Moreno, yes, I apologize.
For the County of San Diego is absent, as well as Imperial County. For North County Coastal, Deputy Mayor Gasterland.
Yes,
And
present.
thank you. And for North County Inland, Mayor White.
Yes.
Thank you. And that vote passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you, Francesca. So now I want to congratulate Mexico for holding earlier this month an impressive electoral process resulting in a clear victory of Claudia Sheinbaum, who will become the first woman president in the history of Mexico after 200 years of elections. Also, our neighbors to the south elected new municipal mayors, city council, and local legislature. Congratulations to them as well. Now I will ask our members if they have any comments. If yes, please keep them brief so we can hear the presentations we have scheduled today. I know everyone's short on time, so we want to get through this in the best manner as possible for you can get to all your meetings. Are there any member comments on this item? Seeing not seeing any. We're going to pass to item number 3, our first report. Do we have Dr. Andrea? I want to welcome Andrea Hoff and Betsy Blake, SANDAG, and Nikki Tiangco from Caltrans. Sorry, I butchered your last name. To present the binational agreements needed to advance the State Route 11 and the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. Please note that this item is presented for action to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt resolution number 2024/32, approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of the amended and restated toll allocation agreement with Mexico's Ministry of Infrastructure, Communications, and Transportation, the toll governance agreement with SICT, and the custodial agreement with the North American Development Bank and SICT. Andrea, Betsy, Nikki, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Just want to add a couple of points of context. One, SICT is the Ministry of Infrastructure, Communications, and Transportation. So they're like the DOT of the U.S. The other part is this morning, the Board of Directors approved us to move forward with the CMGC procurement, or reaching out to pursue a contractor so we can continue and do the 100% design together with the federal government. So connect those dots, because this is the dot on the Mexican side, which is doing the agreements. So doing the design, doing the agreements with Mexico, finalizing a legally binding agreement that will be coming with the federal government. That definitely connects all the dots to move forward into the financing and then eventually the construction of the port of entry. So I want to put that in perspective, because you hear agreements here, agreements there, procurement here, procurement there, all is part of the whole jigsaw puzzle to get moving to eventually begin construction. We need to design it, and then we will move into finance and construction. And I'll pass it on to the team.
Thank you, Mario, and thank you, Chair and members of the Borders Committee. Today we'll be presenting, my name is Andrea Hoff. I'm a Senior Project Manager here at SANDAG, working on the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. And with me, I have Betsy Blake, Senior Legal Counsel here at SANDAG, really shepherding these 3 binational agreements, which you'll be hearing today. Before I begin, I would like to point out one typo in the report for item 4. It's in the fiscal impact box, that gray box that you'll see on the front of your report. The box should read, the toll allocation agreement and related agreements can result in 7.2 billion, not 6.8 billion in revenues over 40 years split between both parties. Just wanted to point out that correction. So here's a summary of what we'll be talking about today. I'll provide a brief project overview and summary of project benefits, followed by a description of the 3 agreements before you today. First, we have the amended and restated toll allocation agreement. This is the historic toll agreement signed with Mexico back in 2022. This is an amendment to that. Then we'll hear about the custodial agreement, which that first agreement contemplated, and this establishes the North American Development Bank as the custodian of the toll revenues and the entity that will track and split those tolls between the United States and Mexico. And finally, the toll governance agreement, which covers the binational working group, which would be a Brown Act body to advise the Board of Directors at SANDAG on toll policy and toll governance. We'll start with a brief project overview. As many of you recall, the SR11 Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project is a corridor project consisting of a highway, a new freeway, State Route 11, about 2.5 miles, a state-of-the-art border crossing, land port of entry, and commercial vehicle enforcement facility. The project has also consisted of various connectors between that new State Route 11 and the 125 and 905. What you see in blue has been constructed and open to traffic, except for the portion of State Route 11 east of Enrico Fermi. What you see in pink and green are the Land Port of Entry and the CVEF. We recently were able to secure an agreement with the federal government to proceed past 30% design on that facility. 30% design has been completed, and we're getting ready to initiate final design. On the Mexican side of the border, you'll see their counterpart facility, Mesa de Otay Dos, and their access road, Boulevard de los Torres. And that both of those projects are currently under construction and expected to be finished later this year. I would like to point out here that this project is different than other ports of entry in our region because the transportation infrastructure has been designed specifically to meet the demand of the future. Unlike other local ports that need to rely on local streets and roads that were not originally designed to handle the loads of traffic coming across the border, here we have completed dedicated and secure access roads in support of the future port of entry. Another key project feature is that the border crossing will be tolled, and we will use what is called congestion pricing to manage demand and maintain a wait time goal of 20 to 30 minutes at the new port. This slide summarizes some of the project benefits we anticipate to see. First, you'll see a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. By providing that 20 to 30 minute average wait time at the new port of entry, idling cars and trucks will be reduced. We anticipate reductions in wait times at not only Otay Mesa East, but at the other regional ports of entry. With less idling in line, we have less harmful emissions. The port will also provide zero emissions infrastructure to incentivize the use of zero emission vehicles. The project will strengthen border security and resiliency. Not only will the project provide a relief valve for the legal crossing of people and goods at our highly constrained border, but also advanced technology for inspections will improve border security, enabling 100% screening of vehicles using non-intrusive inspection equipment. The project will provide advanced traveler information to help people make more informed decisions regarding which crossing to use, and will help manage traffic and incidents. The project will fuel economic growth and bolster binational trade. This new port of entry will relieve a nationally significant supply chain bottleneck, leading to more reliable cross-border movements of goods like auto parts, medical supplies, and semiconductors. The U.S. construction and operations will generate thousands of jobs, many of which will be reserved for disadvantaged groups. Finally, I will direct your attention to the benefit cost ratio that we like to brag about, which is that the benefits of this project outweigh the cost by a ratio of 5 to 1, something we're quite proud of. With that, I'll turn it over to Betsy to get into these 3 binational agreements.
Great, thanks, Andrea. So before we dive into the agreements that are before the committee today, I just wanted to remind the committee about some of the most recent binational agreements that have led us to this point. The first one I wanted to talk about was a MOU that was executed in 2021, just about a month before I started at SANDAG. And that agreement was between SANDAG and Mexican agencies and Caltrans, and it outlined Otay Mesa East's unique collaborative tolling arrangement. It was a non-binding agreement, and it provided for this toll arrangement where SANDAG would act as the toll authority for the project and collect tolls for both northbound and southbound traffic through the port of entry. So many of you probably know that OME is different than other border crossings. Under traditional tolled crossing, Mexico would toll for all northbound traffic, and SANDAG would collect tolls for southbound traffic. So what happened within this MOU is that the parties agreed that SANDAG would act as the single toll authority, single toll collection point for both northbound and southbound traffic. So that arrangement allows the parties to better manage congestions through a variable toll. And the MOU also memorialized the parties' goals for delivering the project, including building the ports of entry, building the access roads, and then also delivering an interoperable ITS system. So then in 2022, the next agreement that was signed was the binding toll revenue sharing agreement. And that agreement is between SANDAG and Mexico's Department of Infrastructure, Communication, and Transportation, which Mario mentioned we refer to as SICT. And so that binding agreement establishes the collaborative tolling arrangement that was memorialized in the 2021 MOU, making SANDAG the toll authority and establishing that there would be a single toll collection point for both northbound and southbound traffic. Mexico also agreed not to collect tolls during the term of the agreement, which is for 40 plus years, or as long as it takes SANDAG to pay off its bonds, any potential TIFIA loan, and so forth. That agreement also outlined the parties' commitment to create an advisory group that would advise the SANDAG Board of Directors on how tolls would be set and what the toll policy would be. It also provided that there would be an advisory position for SICT on the SANDAG Board of Directors to advise on toll setting and toll policy. The agreement also provided that the North American Development Bank would act as a custodian of the funds to actually hold the funds and do the split. And it provides that disputes will be handled similar to a process that's in the USMCA agreement, and that is often referred to as NAFTA 2.0. The most important part of the agreement, though, was how they split the revenue. As Mario always says, follow the money. So this is the flow of funds under the original agreement. And all of these boxes in this slide and in the future slide have a similar legend. So SANDAG is in dark blue. You see the daily toll revenues coming into North American Development Bank. SANDAG's able to requisition tolling operation and maintenance funds from that toll revenues fund. And I should note here that those tolling O&M requisitions have to be in accordance with the tolling O&M budget that's approved by the binational working group. So the O&M operation and maintenance that's paid out of this fund is considered an off-the-top expense before the revenues are split between the parties. So NABBank moves the funds from the toll revenues funds to the net toll revenues funds and then affects the split. And in the early years of the agreement, that split will be done 60-40. And that is a unique part of this agreement. In the early years, Mexico has agreed to allow SANDAG to have 60% of the toll revenue every month to enable us to get investment grade ratings that we need in order to get issue the bonds. And these would be non-recourse toll revenue bonds. So once that 60% goes to SANDAG's bond trustee every month, we make our debt service payments, we fund up reserve accounts, and the remaining residual revenue, we'll use that to pay Mexico back at the end of the year, that 10%. Now, the important thing for you guys, for the committee to recognize here is that if SANDAG, under the original agreement, fails to pay Mexico back in full at the end of the year, we would owe interest to Mexico on any shortfall amount. But no interest was owed to Mexico prior to that point. And that's going to be something that's going to be a little different in the amendment. So the binational agreements that are before this committee include the upstate to the toll allocation agreement, the toll governance agreement, and the custodial agreement. We plan to come back to the Borders Committee for recommendation later this year on 2 other technical agreements related to the intelligent transportation system, as well as operation and maintenance. So let me give you a general overview about the most significant changes to the toll allocation agreement. The first one relates to Mexico has requested that SANDAG pay interest on the 10% while the trustee holds the funds over the course of the year. So remember, as I just said, that under the original agreement, we wouldn't pay interest until the end of the year, and we'd only pay it on a shortfall amount. Now Mexico has requested that during the year, we remit any investment earnings that we receive on the 10%, or if we use a portion of that 10%, we would pay Mexico interest at the secured overnight financing rate, or SOFR. We've talked to our financial advisors about this request, and they indicate that this will have no material impact on the project's financing. The other change relates to a change to the single toll collection point concept. I'll talk about this more in just a second, but we're moving the toll readers outside of State Route 11, and we're moving to a completely cashless system so that the toll transaction will happen within SANDAG's back office system. I want to note here that we're currently doing our due diligence to determine the best system to meet the needs for this project. So the question of what the back office system would look like is still under consideration by the team. Some of the other minor changes relates to changing the name of the agreement from toll sharing to toll allocation. As I mentioned, we're moving to a completely cashless system, providing some other minor tweaks to allow NAB Bank to have a successor, ensure that SANDAG can choose the bond trustee through a procurement. One of the other changes relates to the binational working group, and that originally was contemplated to be a non-governmental administrative body. We had intended that that group would not be subject to the Brown Act. We worked with Mexico, and they determined they wanted to ensure that this group had a direct line of advice to the board, and we're comfortable with it being subject to the Brown Act. So that is another change that you'll see. There's also the creation of the fund at NAB Bank, where SANDAG will make payments for that 10% and any shortfall amounts through NAB Bank. Previously, those amounts were paid directly to SICT. So let me talk briefly about this request from Mexico for there to be interest on the 10%. And then, like I mentioned, the essential changes are that 10% will accrue investment earnings when it's held by the bond trustee. And so those amounts will be remitted to Mexico. If we use any portion of that 10% during the year, that amount will accrue interest at SOFR, the secured overnight financing rate. This chart shows the previous flow of funds, which I just reviewed. This chart shows the proposed new flow of funds. And the main change that you'll see there is as the funds flow through SANDAG's bond trustee, there's a new fund that's created called the coverage fund. And that coverage fund accounts for the 10% that needs to be repaid to Mexico. Let me go to the next slide. And so as investment earnings are earned on that coverage fund, they'll be remitted to a fund at NAB Bank called the True Up Fund. NAB Bank will then in turn transfer the funds in the True Up Fund to the SICT Fund, which is a fund at NAB Bank for the benefit of SICT. At the end of every year, all amounts in the coverage fund will transfer to the True Up Fund for the benefit of SICT. There's a lot going on in this slide, but it essentially is giving the committee a rundown of what some of this would look like in a hypothetical situation. So we'll see here in this hypothetical that 10% between July and June of this hypothetical year adds up to a total of $13,000. In this hypothetical, the actual coverage fund amount is less than that because SANDAG has used amounts to fund up its reserve accounts or make debt service payments. So there ends up only being $9,500 in the fund at the end of the year, which will be remitted to SICT through the True Up Fund. We see that in green. The next green column that we see relates to investment earnings. That's amounts that are actually earned while the coverage fund is held by the trustee and earning interest pursuant to investments. Those amounts are remitted to SICT monthly through the True Up Fund. You also see the pink columns, and those show amounts, the difference between what's actually in the coverage fund and what should be in the coverage fund. That's what that first pink column shows. And that's a liability of SANDAG that accrues interest over the year. And that interest you'll see is in the second pink fund. All of those, if they're not paid by the end of the year, become a cumulative shortfall liability that continue to accrue interest at the secured overnight financing rate. The other change to the agreement relates to this concept of restricted toll revenue. Now, the team briefed the Board of Directors on this issue on May 10th, but I want to remind members of this committee of what that update provided. So under the original structure, the toll transaction happened on State Route 11. That's where the toll readers were. You could pay cash at a single toll collection point. Our Federal Highways Administration raised concern over whether this structure conformed with certain federal regulations that govern how tolls on federally funded highways, which State Route 11 is, could be used. They raised concerns over whether or not we could share the toll revenues with Mexico and whether or not we could use those revenues to pay things like custom and border protections, operation and maintenance costs. So we worked with FHWA to craft a solution and tweak the toll structure so that it conforms with FHWA's requirements. And together we developed a new structure to move the actual financial transaction out of the State Route 11 footprint. So under this new structure, the toll transaction is fully electronic. No cash is transacted. The other main change is that the primary toll readers are moved to the Mexican side of the border so that both northbound and southbound traffic will be pinged outside of State Route 11, outside of that footprint. And the actual toll transaction will be handled at SANDAG's tolling center. There'll also be sets of redundant readers, which would be used in case the primary readers go down. You'll see there's a set of redundant readers on the Mexico side. We want that there because we want as much redundancy on the Mexico side as possible to ensure that the revenues that are generated are not restricted. If for some reason the Mexican side readers were not able to operate properly, SANDAG would then start using the secondary readers on the US side to act as primary readers. Any toll revenue that's generated from the US side readers are considered restricted toll revenues. And so the challenge that we had with this agreement was to ensure if we do collect restricted toll revenues, that we don't share those amounts with Mexico. We use them only for eligible expenses, and we ensure that Mexico is made whole under the original agreement. So those are the changes I'm going to talk about. We did sign an agreement with FHWA in early May that confirms this new tolling structure works with the regulations. So let me give you an example of how the restricted toll revenues might play out. So let's say in a given month, we collect $9,000 in unrestricted toll revenues. Those would be from the Mexican side of the border. And then $1,000 of restricted toll revenues from readers on State Route 11 for a total of $10,000. The parties have agreed that we want to use the restricted toll revenues first to pay tolling O&M expenses. Any eligible expense that we can use those restricted toll revenues for, we're going to pay those first with restricted toll revenues. So in this hypothetical, that's $500, leaving $9,500 left to be split between the parties. But we know that extra $500 that's there in restricted toll revenue, we can't share that with Mexico, and we need to make sure that it's used on eligible expenses. So what we're instructing the NAB Bank to do is to do a restricted toll revenue transfer of that amount to our bond trustee to be used for eligible FHWA purposes. That leaves only $9,000 to split. So you can see in this situation, what Mexico should get is $3,800. That's 40% of $9,500. But if we do the 60-40 based on the $9,000, they're only going to get $3,600. So the way we're addressing this within the agreement is if there is a restricted toll revenue transfer to SANDAG's bond trustee, SICT and SANDAG would send an adjustment direction to NAB Bank to adjust the split so that it would be fair. Essentially, that it would account for that $500 that SANDAG got before the funds were transferred to the net toll revenues account. This is a more complicated version of what I just told you, but it shows the flow of funds into NAB Bank. Those funds, toll revenues that are collected every day off State Route 11 are transferred by SANDAG to NAB Bank. Any restricted toll revenues, SANDAG needs to tell NAB Bank, put these in the restricted toll revenues account. SANDAG, when it requisitions amounts to pay eligible O&M will requisition first from the restricted toll revenues account. 5 days before the end of the month, we'll see, are there remaining restricted toll revenues in the account? And if there are, and we don't need to retain the amount for retention to pay the next month's operation and maintenance expenses, the NAB Bank will transfer that amount to the SANDAG bond trustee and transfer the remaining amounts to the net toll revenues fund. At that point, SICT and SANDAG would send the allocation adjustment direction to NAB Bank, and NAB Bank would split the toll revenues so that it would achieve the 60-40 split. The other agreements, custodial agreement with NAB Bank.
Betsy,
NAB Bank, many of you.
Betsy,
Yes.
could we give just a high level on the custodial, being that it's a little bit not that complex? I know some of the members may need to leave.
Okay.
And we will lose quorum for the action item.
Sure. I think the key here is NAB Bank is holding the funds. They're creating the funds. They are asking for $25,000 as an initial fee to set up the funds, and then a $25,000 annual fee to act as custodian. And that amount would be adjusted for the consumer price index annually. This shows all the different funds that would be created at NAB Bank. NAB Bank is required to invest those funds in accordance with NAB Bank and SANDAG's investment policies. The toll governance agreement, which creates that binational working group. These agreements are both binding. They go for 40 plus years. The membership of the binational group. Those members are appointed by the party's authorized representatives. That is what is in the proposed agreement that this group is considering. For SANDAG, that would be the CEO. For SICT, that would be the minister. And then for Caltrans, who will propose to have a position on the group, that would come from District 11's director. It's proposed to have 6 voting members in the BWG, 3 from SICT, 3 from SANDAG. One of SANDAG's members is proposed to be from Caltrans. You all know, I think, that State Route 11 is owned, operated, and maintained by Caltrans. They've also invested a substantial amount of money in the project. The members are expected to be technical experts in things like tolling, finance, border capital planning, and the project. There'll be alternates and potential advisory members. There'll be a chair and vice chair that will be elected by and from the binational working group. They'll serve 2-year terms that will alternate. So when SICT is the chair, SANDAG will be the vice chair, and then they'll switch. They have the ability to set agenda and call additional meetings. Meetings will be in San Diego County in accordance with the Brown Act. The agreement provides for at least 2 meetings a year, more if the chair and vice chair jointly agree to have more, less if agreed to by the binational working group. The SICT representatives will be reimbursed for their travel expenses to San Diego County from the tolling operation and maintenance expenses budget. It's taken off the top in accordance with SANDAG's travel policy. It requires for a quorum there to be 4 of 6 members. To have any action on the item, you need a majority vote of the members present. Robert's Rules of Order would apply to those meetings unless something else is agreed to by the binational working group. The BWG's responsibilities: they approve the tolling O&M budget. They advise the board on toll setting and toll policy. That needs to happen at least every 2 years. They evaluate and make recommendations to the board on things like toll operations, NAB Bank's performance, and they can conduct audits. As noted, they do approve the tolling operation and maintenance expenses budget. The way this process is proposed to work, SANDAG would submit a proposed budget to the BWG by September 15th. The BWG would submit its approved tolling O&M budget to the SANDAG board by January 15th. And then the SANDAG board would adopt that budget, kind of similar to how we do it with ARJAS. SANDAG's board does have the power to amend that budget. If there are unforeseen circumstances, inaccurate assumptions, it could be amended up to a 7.5% increase. Also could be amended, changed, or replaced if we needed to avoid default under the TIFIA loan or bond indenture. And so that is the presentation, and happy to take questions. We are asking Borders Committee to recommend to the Board of Directors that they adopt a resolution approving execution of these agreements.
First of all, thank you so much, Betsy and Andrea, for this important presentation. I can't emphasize enough how important this is for our region and for the life of everyone who crosses the border on a daily basis. I do want to open it for member comments. I'm sorry, are we,
I need it.
so
Whatever you.
do you want to, are we going to lose quorum if she leaves? Okay, do you want to just go? Do we want to move for the votes and then have public comment?
So do we need a motion to recommend? I'll make the motion.
Okay, why don't I make, does someone want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to
Does
recommend.
anyone want a second? Second, okay, so should we take public comments at this moment, Francesca?
Yes, we can take public comment. Truth, if you'd like to go ahead and step up to the podium, Truth will be followed by the original draw, and that will conclude the public comments.
All right, let's hold Vivian up. Great details, but instead of Mexico getting 50% of our future toll revenue for something they didn't plan and didn't invest the way our country's invested, I'd like to see all toll revenue withheld every day until they fix their broken treatment plant. SANDAG should be helping to protect the environment. But I understand it's all about money, 3.4 billion, while poor people still have to wait in hours-long traffic at San Isidro. Mexico's had quick construction because Mexico doesn't have the environmental protections we do. They could take land from people and destroy the environment at any pace they want to. We're becoming the same, though, with tunnels under people's homes. If we all decide today to stick to local organic produce, we could reduce traffic and close all the extra border crossings. It's Mexico's privilege that the U.S. government betrayed us with GATT and NAFTA that push businesses down south. So no to relying first on Mexican-owned toll readers, no to a no-cash system, no to a binational working group, because what country would even chair the group? No to the USMCA or NAFTA 2.0, which gives America zero leverage or real remediation. And no to American taxes to build projects that steal more taxes. And what about focusing on the BOS first?
Thank you. Your time has expired. The original draw, you can go ahead.
It is very negligent and wrong for you to sit and say that this would do anything to secure the border when it is wide open along where there's a wall. And we are allowing these people to come across. There's no point in having a point of entry and talking about stuff like that, especially when children go missing. But you should be having those agreements with Mexico. Stop the flow. They could do that. But instead, we're working with them to have them increase the flow across our border outside of a port of entry, which is a federal offense to engage in. And it's not right for them to even get any of this money. This whole project should go because they should be, those are the things that you should be acknowledging. And it's crazy to me that we can have this happening and nobody even talks about it. Nobody talks about the unaccompanied minors that come across the border. Nobody talks about the fact that there's an invasion. We already know that members of ISIS, there's like 400 known ISIS terrorist organization individuals that are tied to them, and we're allowing this to happen. There is no secure border. You're lying to the people.
That concludes the public comments.
Now we have an action before us. Clerk, can you please call for the vote?
Thank you. First South County, Vice Chair Chavez.
Yes.
East County is absent. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno. Moreno stated yes as her vote. The County of San Diego and Imperial County are both absent. For North County Coastal, Deputy Mayor Gasterland.
Yes.
And for North County Inland, Mayor White.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you. I'm going to open for member comments at this moment. Does anyone have any comments for both Betsy Blake or Andrea Huff? I just want to say briefly again, and we have the father of Otay Mesa too sitting with us. And this is it's literally just 3 minutes west of the current Otay Mesa border. And I just want to emphasize how much this is a life changer for the almost 90,000 people that are crossing on a daily basis, commuting from south to north to south because they're a workforce, because they come here for vacation. They come here for multiple purposes, but this will change the life and the carbon footprint for thousands and thousands and thousands of years to come. So, and I wanted to mention really quickly before we leave that because of the U.S. side, the funds are tied to the border, to border improvements and joint regional use. I'd like to propose a follow-up conversation because we have a new president of Mexico, and our ambassador joined us this morning. Maybe we can open up conversation of how funding on both sides of the border would impact for the better in this region, if that's okay with the Consul General's representative. Thank you so much. Anyone else have any comments? Seeing no additional comments, we will be adjourning. The next Borders Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, July 26, 2024 at 1 p.m. Thank you so much.